Hi everyone. So as we have seen the theory or the concept of equality before doing the rights to equality in the previous videos, on the same pattern we'll try to now understand the theory and the concept related to freedom, because it is firstly given in your NCERT. That has to be done very clearly. This is taken from a chapter named as Freedom from your 11th Political Science NCERT, and the name of the book is Political Theory. Also, in the prelims examination, the questions have been asked on these sections, and therefore these are non-avoidable. And also, once we understand this, it would be easier for us to go for the fundamental rights of freedom, which we'll be doing in the coming videos. So let's try to understand what is this whole idea of freedom. Now see, when you talk about the word freedom, definitely the first question that would come to your mind is that what is freedom? ये पूरे freedom का idea जो है वो है क्या? Now the book explains this in two aspects, and both are important to be understood for the reason that these are two parameters which gives you one a negative connotation, one a positive connotation, and based on this only we have a concept of negative and positive liberty also. But what does it say? The first thing, and interestingly, जो prelims में question आया हुआ था इस topic को लेके, what they did was कि in the 4 options they gave you these 2 options also and some 2 other options also. Now the confusion was that both these are given in the book and both these explains the meaning of the word freedom. So whatever you choose had a chance of 50-50 getting correct. Although in the official answer key this one was given as the correct answer, but then you get the official answer key like after a year. Now we'll try to understand why they could have given this as the right answer, because otherwise as a concept both are right. ठीक है, चलिए पहले तो पहले कॉन्सेप्ट को समझते हैं. द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट दे से इज दैट व्हाट इज फ्रीडम में, that it is about the absence of constraints. ठीक है, absence of constraints, because see, this is something that will very directly, if I ask you what does freedom mean to you, the very first thing is going to come to your mind is कि कोई मेरे पे restriction ना लगाए. Somebody should not put a constraint on me. So absence of constraint or restraint is a very fundamental idea and a very common notion that's going to figure out in all of our mind, right, for the idea of freedom. The second idea is about giving opportunity or providing or building up that opportunity for the individuals for the development of their potential. Why is this important? Now understand. Okay, it is good to not have constraints, although we have certain parameters for that also, so we'll look for that. But here the idea is that if you are providing the conducive situations and the opportunity, if somebody is very skilled, let's say you have very ग्रेट नॉलेज ऑफ लेट्स से कंप्यूटर्स और IT सेक्टर, ठीक है, आपको बहुत कुछ आता है, लेट्स से आपको साइबर सिक्योरिटी में बहुत कुछ आता है, समथिंग दैट इज ऑफ इमेंस सिग्निफिकेंस एट दिस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम, anything for that matter, any skill that you have. But if you are not given enough opportunity to develop your potential, what is the point of having that skill if you're not able to apply that? So here the whole idea is that freedom would be not binding somebody in certain situations, that you are not allowing them to develop as much as they could have otherwise. ठीक है, so these are the two ideas. Now we'll try to dwell upon कि इसको ही इन्होंने क्यों चुना होगा, but इसको हम थोड़ा देर से करेंगे. अब समझते हैं, when we talk about this word constraints and we say that there should be absence of constraints, so definitely the first question would also again come to our mind is that what are the sources of those constraints? ये constraints हमें कहाँ से मिलते हैं? ठीक है, तो अगर हम सी दीज कंस्ट्रेंट्स कैन बी फ्रॉम योर इनर concerns also, that you want to do something but your conscience is not asking you to do, but you're still doing under some pressure. Or these constraints can come from your family, that you wanted to choose some other subject or you wanted to marry somebody of your choice but the family did not allow. This constraint can come from your society, again the same thing, career, marriage, all of that. society को बड़ा interest होता है in matters में, ठीक है, तो वो कास्ट का और ये सब का कंस्ट्रेंट्स लगा देते हैं. और कंस्ट्रेंट्स कैन ऑल्सो कम फ्रॉम लेट्स से स्टेट से यहाँ पे मतलब हम नेशन स्टेट की अगर बात करते हैं तो लॉ लगा के एक्सेट्रा हो सकता है. बट व्हाट आर दीज हम देखते हैं आप. सो व्हाट कुड बी द पॉसिबल सोर्सेज ऑफ कंस्ट्रेंट्स? सो वन कुड बी लाइक डोमिनेशन, दैट सम एक्सटर्नल फोर्स is dominating. For example, you know what happened in the case of the colonial government. That is something all of us know. So that what could be that external constraint. Another could be another kind of external control, let's say by making any law. अब जैसे साउथ अफ्रीका में एपेथाइड के लॉ से ठीक है, ये था रेशियल डिस्क्रिमिनेशन जो था. उसके अलावा सोशल इनइक्वालिटी कैन हैपन एंड द मेजर एग्जाम्पल इज योर कास्ट सिस्टम. Economic inequality can happen when income related things happen. Either you're not getting income as per the work you are doing, or you are not getting any fixed income, so there is insecurity. So all of these put constraints on your life, right? So the whole idea is कि source of constraints can be many, but the question is कि क्या absence of absolute, या फिर in other words is should there be absolute absence of constraint, कि कोई रुकावट ही नहीं होना चाहिए? Should that be the criteria? So you will then yourself say कि no, because see, when we think only about our rights, definitely we say कि नहीं भाई बिल्कुल constraint नहीं चाहिए, we do not need constraints, or we should not have constraints. But as soon as you feel, let's say, the other persons also says this, और उनका ऐसा कुछ भी करना आपके राइट को हार्म करेगा, immediately your idea will change and you will say कि भाई constraints होना तो चाहिए, उस पर constraint लगाओ, उस पर बंदिश लगाओ. So let's say, just giving you an example, we know that we have a fundamental right, which we'll do in the coming video, which is right to freedom. And the first says, let's say, freedom of speech and expression. Let's just take this example. Now this is a fundamental right. भाई ये तो आपको कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ग्रांट कर रहा है, नहीं मिले तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट भी चले जाओ, बड़े इसमें ऑप्शंस हैं. लेकिन यहाँ पर ना इसके साथ इन्होंने एक रीजनेबल रेस्ट्रिक्शन भी लगा दिया है. Now this is a very ideal idea, I mean, to understand. Very common thing. Bhai, freedom of speech and expression cannot mean that you will say or do anything you want to do. And you will, by your words or by your actions or by your expression, it will take away the freedom of some other individual. That cannot happen in the society, because everyone needs to be treated equally. So therefore we understand that certain kind of constraints or restraints are needed in the society. है ना, कोई आपको कुछ भी तो नहीं बोल के जा सकता है ना. So the whole idea is कि now this is something which has ifs and buts, and therefore they might not have given this as the right answer. But this is something giving you the positive connotation, because we are providing opportunity to the individual to develop their potential. I hope you're getting the difference. Then the question would be that why do we need, now that we have agreed on the point that yes, certain kind of constraints are needed, so फिर the question will be कि भाई क्यों. So अभी हमने देखा जैसे एग्जाम्पल, किसी तरह के chaos से बचने के लिए, conflict से बचने के लिए, because we know that the ideas and opinions of different people are going to vary. So to prevent all of that from happening, it is needed that we have constraints. But these could not be arbitrary constraints. ऐसे random फिर आप मेरे अधिकार को भी नहीं छीन सकते हो. It has to be justifiable, है ना. ये तो होना चाहिए ना कि आप उसको justified मानोगे that okay, this is okay to get it. And therefore the term used is reasonable restriction. So the state is putting reasonable restriction, as you can see here, on this right of speech and expression on certain grounds. अब ये क्या क्या grounds है ये हम दूसरे lecture में देखेंगे. Similarly, for all of these rights, you have different kinds of grounds. Grounds मतलब you would say, the sections जहाँ पर कि वो, या फिर the reasons जिनके basis पे वो impose हो सकते हैं. So we understand that we have justifiable restrictions which we call as reasonable restriction. इसी के basis पे जो है ना negative and positive वाले पे एक idea आता है which is of negative and positive liberty. कि negative liberty would be जहाँ पर आपका minimum area of non-interference रहेगा. That whatever you want to do, you are able to do, and there is no external constraint or very minimum external constraint. But the positive liberty, that you are giving the positive conditions, or you're getting the positive conditions to develop yourself in material sense, in social sense, political sense, and in all the related senses. Okay, so these two concepts are interrelated. Amongst all of these concepts comes another concept of harm principle, which is given in your book. Now you need to read this very thoroughly. आप उसको book से भी पढ़ लीजिएगा, because such kind of concepts या तो वो prelims में पूछ देंगे कि this is related to which idea, like which value, equality, freedom, justice, etc. और आप quote कर सकते हो such kind of concepts in your essay or ethics. Now what does this harm principle say? Principle, you understand the rules that we try to figure out. Harm आपको समझ आ रहा है, नुकसान. अब ये concept दिया गया, ये principle दिया गया by J.S. Mill, a very very important person, who wrote an essay on the topic of liberty. And he talked about two kinds of actions. Once you understand these two kinds of actions, you will understand what this harm word here implies. So self-regarding action and others regarding action. Now what is a self-regarding action? So the actions that have implication or consequences on your own self only. Okay, so any kind of actions जिसका सिर्फ आप पर असर पड़ेगा. Let's say if you are in a room and you are hearing music, listening to music, not hearing, listening to music, and you have the earphones plugged in. Now the consequence of that activity of yours or action of yours will only be beared by you. Nobody else has anything to do with that. आप अपने कमरे में बंद ईयरफोन लगा के पढ़ाई कर रहे हो, जो भी कर रहे हो, गाना सुन रहे हो, या बहुत लोग पढ़ते भी हैं, बहुत लोग इंजॉय करते हैं, डांस कर रहे हो, कुछ भी कर रहे हो. The others do not have to, interfere in that. So there will be no interference for the state, and it will all be the individual will to do whatever the individual wants to do. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे you are not causing any harm to other with the help of your actions, or your actions are not having consequence on others. So self-regarding actions are those which is having the consequence on yourself only. तो ये तो sorted है. What about the other regarding actions? So those actions which will have consequences for the others. ठीक है. Let's again take the example of this music only. If your music is slight loud, let's say you're playing it on a speaker, okay, and it's coming out of your room, others also in your neighbor, or let's say others in your family are also able to hear that. So on others, there is a consequence of your action of hearing, listening to the music. यहाँ पे तो earphones था तो कोई issue ही नहीं था. But उसमें भी, is this causing immense harm? ठीक है, or is it manageable? So if it is manageable and it is causing a very minor or a non-serious harm, then the kind of reaction it should get is that only you are socially disapproving the person. Let's say you are living in a society and somebody is playing music on a regular basis or very loudly or something, and you keep requesting, ठीक है, बट वो नहीं सुनते. अच्छा, रात के बाद अब तो फंडामेंटल राइट में आपका ऐड हो गया है कि रात को एक सर्टन पॉइंट के पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम के बाद यू आर नॉट सपोज टू प्ले लाउड म्यूजिक, ठीक है, पब्लिक प्लेसेस में. लेकिन अगर कोई अपने ऐसे घर में दिन के टाइम कर रहा है या कुछ भी ऐसा कर रहा है जो कि आप वैसे रोक नहीं सकते, जो कि राइट में नहीं काउंट होगा, बट यू आर रिक्वेस्टिंग द अदर पर्सन दैट ओके आई हैव टू स्टडी, या हमारे घर में कोई बच्चा है, बूढ़ा है, somebody is having a problem and please do not play this loudly, but the person is not accepting it, भाई, क्योंकि वो तो बोलेंगे it's our freedom. So in that case, if that is not something very harmful but still something being disliked by everybody around, then what you can, according to J.S. Mill, what you can go for is social disapproval. So if the harm is non-serious or minor, please go for social disapproval. Like, do not, like, let's say the whole society stops talking or stop talking to that person or interacting, या फिर थोड़ा उनको avoid कर रहे हैं, but you're not going for any legal punishment because the harm is not that huge. But if the actions of yours are having certain consequence in the others, let's say the incidents, these violence activities like murder, or let's say rape, or any kind of let's say theft ही है या कुछ भी है, इस तरीके की जो गलत चीज़ें हैं, in that case when the harm caused is very serious, there will be state interference. अब इसमें तो आपको स्टेट में बुलाने की जरूरत नहीं है, आपस में यू कैन लाइक मैनेज एंड गो फॉर सोशल डिसअप्रूवल. But here state interference would be needed and you will have to go for the legal punishment. So this is what the harm principle says related to the idea of liberty. Everybody has got their own set of liberty. If your actions are having the consequence only on you, there is no need of any state interference, simple as that. If your actions are having consequence on others, then also two conditions. If that consequence or if that harm is minor or non-serious, manage it with something like social disapproval. Do not go for legal punishment. But if the harm caused is very serious, have the state interference, go for legal punishment. This is the broader idea of this harm principle and related to the idea of liberty or freedom. I hope I've made myself clear with the theory part. Now in the next video, we'll deal with the constitutional related parts, the articles that will be seen, the right to freedom and the related articles. Okay? See you in the next video, guys. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Take care.